Jake woke up in the medical bay of the Unity 3 days later. His head was pounding, and his left arm was in a cast, but he was alive. The first thing he saw was Lisa sitting in a chair next to his bed, her head resting on her arms as she slept. "Lisa," he said softly. She jerked awake immediately, her eyes wide with concern. When she saw that he was conscious, relief flooded her face. "You're awake," she said, reaching for his hand. "The doctors said you might not wake up for days." Jake squeezed her fingers gently. "How long was I out?" 3 days. You had a severe concussion and oxygen deprivation. Danny and Amy got you out of the ship just in time." Lisa's voice was shaky. "Jake, I thought I'd lost you." "You didn't lose." "Me," Jake said. "And you won't. I promised to say yes, remember?" Lisa smiled through her tears. "About that. Are you sure you meant it?" "Because proposing to someone while they're dying might not count." "It counts," Jake said firmly. "Lisa Rodriguez, will you marry me?" "I already asked you." Lisa laughed. "But yes, Jake Morrison, I will marry you." They were interrupted by Ambassador Plex entering the medical bay. The Andorian diplomat looked pleased, though it was still hard to read his expressions. "Captain Morrison," Ambassador Plex said, "I am glad to see you are recovering. Your actions saved not only the diplomatic mission, but possibly the future of Human Federation relations." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "The footage of your battle has been transmitted throughout Federation space," Ambassador Plex explained. "Your willingness to sacrifice yourself to protect the convoy and Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez's proposal during the crisis has become a symbol of human courage and devotion." Lisa looked uncomfortable. "Footage? The security systems on all Federation vessels record significant events," Ambassador Plex said. "Your engagement has been broadcast on every major news network in the galaxy." Jake felt his heart sink. "So the whole galaxy watched Lisa propose to me?" "And watched you nearly die protecting diplomats from 12 different species," Ambassador Plex added. "The response has been overwhelming. Species that were undecided about human membership in the Federation are now strongly in favor." A new voice spoke from the doorway. "The Zentari High Council has officially endorsed humanity's petition." Jake turned to see Captain Zefka entering the medical bay. The tall, blue-skinned Zentari captain looked dignified as always, but there was warmth in his silver eyes. "Captain Zefka," Jake said, "thank you for fighting alongside us." "It was an honor," Captain Zefka replied. "Your bond with Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez inspired my crew. We had never seen two warriors fight with such perfect unity while separated by vast distances. You anticipated each other's needs even when you could not communicate." "We've been working together for a long time," Lisa said modestly. "No," Captain Zefka said firmly. "This was something more. When you proposed to Captain Morrison while he was trapped in his ship, you showed the galaxy what human commitment truly means. You chose love in the face of death. This is why humans will be strong members of the Federation." Over the next few days, as Jake recovered, they learned more about the impact of their actions. The Vulcarian delegation had released a detailed study of their battle coordination, concluding that human emotional bonds actually enhance tactical effectiveness rather than hindering it. The ethereal representatives had written poetry about their quantum-entangled souls. Even the usually stoic Andromedans had commented on the fascinating efficiency of human pair bonding under stress, but it wasn't all positive attention. Some human colonies had sent messages expressing concern that Jake and Lisa were being held up as representatives of their entire species. "Look at this," Lisa said, reading from a tablet while sitting next to Jake's bed. "The Mars Colony Council says we're putting too much pressure on human relationships by making ours a symbol of Federation membership." Jake read over her shoulder. "Colony Leader Williams says that not all humans form soul-match pairs and that our relationship might create unrealistic expectations." "Do you think they're right?" Lisa asked. "Are we setting an impossible standard?" Before Jake could answer, Amy Chen entered the medical bay. The communications officer looked excited. About something. Captain, you need to see this, Amy said, handing them another tablet. We're getting messages from human colonies throughout Federation space. Thousands of them. Jake looked at the screen. It was filled with video messages from humans of all ages, from dozens of different worlds. My name is Carlos, and I'm from the Europa Mining Station, said a young man on the screen. I wanted to thank Captain Morrison and Lieutenant Rodriguez for showing the galaxy that humans don't have to choose between love and duty. You can have both. The next message was from an elderly woman. I'm Margaret from the agricultural colony. On Kepler 442b, I've been married to my husband for 47 years, and your story reminds me why I fell in love with him. Thank you for showing that human bonds make us stronger, not weaker. Message after message played on the screen. Couples who had been inspired by their story. Single people who said it gave them hope for finding their own partnerships. Families who said it reminded them what was important in life. There are over 10,000 messages, Amy said. And more are coming in every hour. Jake felt overwhelmed. I don't understand. We're just two people who figured out we cared about each other. That's exactly the point. Came a voice from the doorway. They turned to see Commander Hex-9, the Vulcarian officer who had questioned them during the diplomatic briefing. The tall, thin alien entered the room with his usual precise movements. Commander, Jake said, what brings you here? I wanted to apologize, Commander Hex-9 said. During our first meeting, I suggested that human emotions were inefficient. I was wrong. Lisa raised an eyebrow. Wrong how? Your species does not form emotional bonds in spite of their tactical disadvantages, Commander Hex-9 explained. You form them because they provide tactical advantages. Your care for each other makes you fight harder, think faster, and take risks that purely logical beings would avoid. We don't calculate the tactical advantages of caring about someone, Jake said. We just care. Exactly, Commander Hex-9 said. That is what makes it powerful. You do not choose to love because it is efficient. You choose to be efficient because you love. This is why the Federation needs humanity. After Commander Hex-9 left, Jake and Lisa sat in comfortable silence for a while. Jake was processing everything that had happened. A week ago, they had been friends and colleagues. Now they were engaged, symbols of their species, and apparently proof that humans deserved a place in the galactic community. Lisa, Jake said finally, are you sure about this? About us? The whole galaxy is watching now. Lisa turned to look at him. Jake, do you remember what you said when I asked if you would say yes if I proposed? I said I would say yes. You didn't hesitate. You didn't think about it. You just answered from your heart. Lisa took his hand. That's when I knew that what we had was real. Not because some alien ceremony declared a soul match, but because you were already sure about us before you even realized it. Jake smiled. So you're not worried about being a symbol for all of humanity? I'm terrified, Lisa admitted. But I'm more terrified of losing you. Whatever pressure comes with being a symbol, we'll face it together. Together, Jake agreed. The medical bay door opened again, and Danny Walsh stuck his head in. Sorry to interrupt, but we just got new orders from Federation Command. As soon as the captain is cleared for duty, we're being sent to escort the human delegation to the final Federation Council vote. Jake looked at Lisa. Ready for the next adventure, future Mrs. Morrison? Lisa grinned. Ready, future Mr. Rodriguez Morrison. Rodriguez Morrison? Jake asked. Surprise. I figured we should. Hyphenate, Lisa said. After all, we're representing the future of human partnership. We might as well get the name right. Jake laughed, and for the first time since waking up, he felt like everything was going to be okay. Whatever came next, they would face it as partners, as equals, and as proof that sometimes the best things in life happen when you stop overthinking and just say yes. The bridge of the Stellar Dawn was alive with activity as Jake and Lisa returned from the diplomatic vessel. The crew was already at battle stations, preparing for the pirate attack. Through the main view screen, Jake could see the enemy fleet. Approaching fast, 20 ships of various sizes, all bristling with weapons. "Report," Jake ordered as he took his position in the captain's chair. Danny looked up from his engineering station. 20 enemy vessels confirmed. Most are light cruisers, but there are at least 3 heavy battleships in the formation. They're moving to surround the convoy. Amy's voice was tense as she read from her communications console. "The other escort?" "Ships are requesting orders, Captain. The Zentari captain is asking if we should form a defensive line." Jake studied the tactical display. The convoy was trapped in the middle of a slowly closing circle. The pirates had planned this attack while they had enough ships to overwhelm the escort vessels while capturing the diplomatic ship intact. "Lisa, what's our best option?" Jake asked. Lisa was already working at her station, her fingers flying across the controls as she analyzed the enemy formation. "The pirate fleet is strong, but they're spread out to surround us. If we can punch through their line at the weakest point and draw some of them away from the convoy, the other escort ships might be able to protect the diplomats. That's a suicide." "Mission," Danny said. "We'd be facing half their fleet alone." "Not alone," Lisa said, looking at Jake. "The Zentari ship has agreed to come with us. Captain Zefka says he owes us a debt of honor." Jake felt a surge of warmth. Even in this desperate situation, their alien allies were willing to stand with them. "Do it. Signal the convoy to move to maximum defensive formation. We'll break through their line and draw as many ships as possible away from the diplomats." The next few minutes were chaos. The Stellar Dawn and the Zentari ship Peaceful Current charged straight at the enemy formation. Jake pushed the ship to its limits, dodging enemy fire while Lisa targeted their weapon systems with deadly precision. Direct hit on the lead battleship. Lisa reported, "Their shields are down to 60%. Jake spun the ship around a massive enemy cruiser, bringing them close enough to see the pirates' faces through their viewports. "Nice shooting. Can you disable their engines?" "Already working on it," Lisa replied. Her voice was calm and focused, the way it always was during battle. This was when they worked best together, when everything else fell away except the fight. Enemy ships' engines exploded in a shower of sparks. The cruiser began spinning out of control, crashing into one of its own escort vessels. "2 down," Jake announced. 18 to go. But even as they fought, Jake could see that the situation was getting worse. The pirates had more ships then. The escorts could handle. 3 enemy vessels had broken through the defensive line and were heading straight for the diplomatic ship. "Jake," Lisa said urgently, "the Unity is under attack. Their shields are failing." Jake looked at the tactical display and felt his heart sink. The diplomatic ship was too far away for them to reach in time. The pirates would capture it, and with it, the representatives of 12 different species. "We have to go back," Jake said. "We have to protect the convoy. If we leave now, the ships we've been fighting will just regroup and attack the convoy from behind," Lisa pointed out. "We need to finish this first." Jake gritted his teeth. She was right, but it meant leaving the diplomats defenseless. "How long do we need?" 5 minutes to disable the rest of these ships," Lisa said. "Maybe less if we get lucky." "The Unity doesn't have 5 minutes," Danny reported. "Their shields will collapse in 2 minutes, maybe 3. Jake made a decision that went against every instinct he had. "We split up. Lisa, take a fighter squadron and go protect the diplomatic ship. I'll finish these pirates." Lisa turned to stare at him. "Jake, no. We don't split up. We never split up." "This is different," Jake said. "The mission is more important than our personal preferences." "It's not about preferences," Lisa said angrily. "It's about staying alive. We're better together then. We are apart." An explosion rocked the ship as enemy fire hit their shields. Jake fought to keep the ship steady while Lisa continued to argue with him. "There's no time to debate this," Jake said. "Take the fighters and go? That's an order." Lisa looked at him for a long moment. Jake could see the conflict in her eyes. the desire to stay with him warring with her duty to follow orders. "Don't you dare get yourself killed," she said finally. "I mean it, Jake. Don't you dare." She kissed him quickly on the cheek, then ran toward the turbolift. Jake watched her go, his heart pounding, not just from the battle, but from the touch of her lips on his skin. "Captain," Danny called, "we have incoming missiles." Jake forced himself to focus on the fight. Without Lisa at the tactical station, he had to rely on the ship's automatic systems to target the enemy weapons. It wasn't the same as having her there, anticipating his moves, covering his mistakes. The next few minutes were the longest of Jake's life. He dodged and weaved through enemy fire, trying to disable the pirate ships without Lisa's expert targeting. The ship took several hits, and he could hear Danny shouting damage reports over the sound of alarms. "Shield generators are offline," Danny reported. "Hull breach on Deck 7. Jake spun the ship around and fired at the nearest enemy vessel. The blast took out their weapons, but there were still 5 ships left, and the Stellar Dawn was badly damaged. Through the view screen, Jake could see Lisa's fighter squadron engaged in a desperate battle around the diplomatic ship. The fighters were tiny compared to the enemy cruisers, but they were fast and agile. Jake watched Lisa's fighter dart between the massive ships, her weapons flashing as she attacked their weak points. Then he saw something that made his blood run cold. One of the enemy ships had positioned itself between Lisa's fighter and the diplomatic vessel. It was charging its main weapon, a massive energy cannon that could destroy a fighter in a single shot. "Lisa, break off!" Jake shouted into his communicator. "There's a battleship targeting you." But Lisa's fighter was too close to the diplomatic ship to maneuver. If she tried to dodge, the enemy ship would have a clear shot at the Unity. Jake watched in horror as the enemy cannon began to glow with deadly energy. In a few seconds, it would fire, and Lisa would be vaporized. Without thinking, Jake pushed the Stellar Dawn's engines to maximum power and charged straight at the enemy battleship. The ship groaned under the strain, but it responded, accelerating toward the enemy vessel. Jake's ship struck the battleship just as it fired. The impact sent both ships spinning out of control, but the enemy's shot went wide, missing Lisa's fighter by inches. The collision had damaged the Stellar Dawn's life support systems. Warning lights were flashing all over the bridge, and Jake could hear the hiss of escaping air. "Emergency power only," Danny reported. "We're losing atmosphere on all decks." Jake tried to activate the ship's emergency systems, but the controls weren't responding. The collision had done more damage than he thought. The ship was dying around him. Through the static on his communicator, he heard Lisa's voice. "Jake, respond." "Jake, are you there?" "I'm here," Jake said, though his voice was weak. "Is the diplomatic ship safe?" "Yes, but Jake, your ship is venting atmosphere. You need to get to the escape pods." Jake looked around the bridge. The escape pod access was blocked by fallen debris, and the emergency systems were offline. Even if he could reach the pods, he wasn't sure they would work. "Lisa," he said quietly, "I need you to know something. When you asked me about proposing, I gave you the right answer. I meant it then, and I mean it now." There was silence on the communicator for a moment. Then Lisa's voice came through, strong and clear. "Jake Morrison, this would be a terrible time to propose." Despite everything, Jake smiled. Even facing death, Lisa could still make him laugh. "I'd still say yes, even now." "Then I'm asking," Lisa said. "Jake, will you marry me?" "Yes," Jake said without hesitation. "Yes, I will." The lights on the bridge flickered and went out. Jake closed his eyes and thought about Lisa's smile, about the way she looked when she was concentrating on a difficult problem, about the sound of her laugh. The last thing he heard before losing consciousness was the sound of cutting tools on the hull, and Lisa's voice shouting his name. The diplomatic convoy was larger than Jake had expected. 12 ships from different species formed a protective formation around the main diplomatic vessel, a massive Andorian cruiser called the Unity. The Stellar Dawn took its position at the rear of the convoy, ready to defend against any attacks from behind. Jake stood on the bridge, watching the other ships on his display screen. Each vessel looked completely different from the others. The Centauri ship was long and elegant, with flowing curves that reminded him of a work of art. The Vulcarian ship was all sharp angles and dark metal, built for efficiency rather than beauty. The Kepler delegation traveled in a ship that looked like it was made of living coral, constantly shifting colors as it moved through space. "Convoy is ready to depart," Lisa reported from her station. She had been all business since they left port, speaking to Jake only when necessary and avoiding his eyes whenever possible. "Take us out," Jake ordered. The convoy began moving toward the jump point that would take them to Andorian space. The journey would take 5 days, which meant 5 days of working closely with Lisa while pretending everything was normal. 3 hours into the journey, Jake received a message from the Unity requesting that he and Lisa transport over for a diplomatic briefing. Jake's heart sank. The last thing he wanted was to be examined by a group of alien diplomats who were all fascinated by human relationships. "Do we both have to go?" Lisa asked when Jake told her about the meeting. "The message specifically requested both of us," Jake replied. "Apparently, our reputation has preceded us." Lisa sighed. "Great! More aliens who want to study the famous human bonding pair." They took a shuttle to the Unity, where they were met by Ambassador Tlex, a tall Andorian with silver skin and 4 arms. Ambassador Tlex greeted them with what Jake hoped was a smile, though it was hard to tell with alien facial expressions. "Captain Morrison, Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez," Ambassador Tlex said in perfect English. "We are honored to meet the famous soul match pair." "We're honored to be here," Jake replied, trying to keep his voice neutral. Ambassador Tlex led them through the ship to a large conference room where representatives from all 12 species were waiting. Jake recognized some of the alien types from his academy training, but others were completely new to him. "Please, sit," Ambassador Tlex said, gesturing the 2 chairs at the head of the table. "We have some questions about human customs." Jake and Lisa sat down, and immediately Jake felt like he was being examined under a microscope. Every alien in the room was staring at them with intense curiosity. A tall, thin being with blue skin and large black eyes leaned forward. "I am Commander Hex-9 of the Vulcarian delegation," he said in a voice that sounded like metal scraping against metal. "I have been studying your species for several years. Your emotional bonds are inefficient, yet they seem to make you more effective in crisis situations. This is a contradiction that puzzles us." Lisa shifted uncomfortably in her chair. "I'm not sure what you mean by inefficient." "Emotions cloud judgment," Commander Hex-9 explained. "They cause individuals to make decisions based on personal attachment rather than logical analysis. Yet your performance yesterday against the pirates suggests that your emotional connection to each other enhanced your tactical abilities. How do you explain this?" Jake looked at Lisa, who was staring at the table. He could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands were clenched in her lap. "We've worked together for a long time," Jake said carefully. "We know each other's strengths and weaknesses. That makes us a good team." A being that looked like a large insect with crystalline wings spoke up. "But surely this goes beyond simple professional cooperation. The Centauri ceremony recognized a deeper connection. Are you saying that human pair bonding is merely a tactical advantage?" "We're not pair bonded," Lisa said quickly. "The ceremony was just a cultural misunderstanding." The insect liked being tilted its head, "but you fight as one mind. You anticipate each other's actions. You risk yourselves for each other's safety. These are the behaviors of bonded pairs among most species." Jake felt heat rising in his cheeks. "We're friends and colleagues. That's all." Commander Hex-9 made a sound that might have been laughter. "Interesting. You deny the bond, yet your physiological responses suggest otherwise. Your heart rates have increased. Your skin temperature has risen, and your stress hormones are elevated. These are the same responses we observe in bonded pairs of other species when their relationships are questioned. An elegant being with flowing robes and tentacles instead of hair spoke in a melodic voice. Among my people, the ethereals, we recognize emotional resonance as a form of quantum entanglement. Two consciousness become linked at a fundamental level. Perhaps humans experience something similar? We're not linked, Lisa said firmly. We're just good at working together. But you would risk your life for him, the ethereal continued. And he would risk his life for you. This suggests a connection that transcends simple friendship. Jake could see that Lisa was getting frustrated. Her face was flushed, and she kept glancing at the door like she wanted to escape. Look, Jake. I appreciate your interest in human relationships, but we're here to escort your convoy safely to the Andorian Council. Maybe we should focus on that. Ambassador Tlex raised one of his four hands. Of course, Captain. But you must understand that your relationship has become a symbol of human integration into the Federation. Many species are curious about how humans form bonds, how you maintain them, and how they affect your performance as a unified force. What do you mean, a symbol? Lisa asked. The human petition for full Federation membership will be evaluated, partly based on your species' stability and unity, Ambassador Tlex explained. Your partnership demonstrates that humans can form strong, lasting bonds that enhance rather than hinder their effectiveness. This is seen as a positive trait by many council members. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Are you saying that our relationship affects humanity's chances of joining the Federation? Not your relationship specifically, Ambassador Tlex said, but what it represents. The ability to form cooperative partnerships, to work together under pressure, to maintain loyalty even in dangerous situations. These are qualities the Federation values highly. Before anyone could respond, an alarm began blaring throughout the ship. Ambassador Tlex touched the device on his wrist and spoke rapidly in his own language. What's happening? Jake asked. Pirates, Ambassador Tlex said grimly. A large fleet has just dropped out of hyperspace. They're heading straight for us. Jake and Lisa were on their feet instantly. We need to get back to our ship, Jake said. The shuttles are already being prepared, Ambassador Tlex replied. But Captain, this attack force is much larger than the one you faced yesterday. Are you certain you can handle it? Jake looked at Lisa, and for the first time since their conversation, she looked directly back at him. In her eyes, he saw the same determination he had seen 1,000 times before. Whatever personal issues they had, when it came to protecting people, they were still a team. We can handle it, Lisa said confidently. As they rushed toward the shuttle bay, Jake heard Commander Hex 9 speaking to one of the other aliens behind them. Observe how they move together, the Vulcarian said. Even in crisis, they maintain perfect coordination. The emotional bond enhances their tactical awareness rather than diminishing it. Fascinating. Jake and Lisa reached their shuttle and began the quick flight back to the stellar dawn. As they flew through space, Jake could see the pirate fleet approaching. There were at least 20 ships, all heavily armed. Jake, Lisa said quietly, whatever happens out there, I want you to know that I meant what I said yesterday. And I think you meant what you said too. Jake looked at her, and for a moment, all the confusion and uncertainty of the past 2 days disappeared. I did mean it, he said. I just didn't realize it at the time. Lisa smiled for the first time in days. Good, because we're about to fight the biggest battle of our lives, and I'd rather do it with someone I care about than with just a colleague. As they docked with the stellar dawn, Jake felt something settle into place inside him. Whatever happened, next, he and Lisa would face it together. And maybe, just maybe, that was exactly what made humans special in this galaxy, full of logical, efficient alien species. They had feelings. They had bonds. And those bonds made them stronger, not weaker. Pirates were about to learn that lesson the hard way. Jake woke up the next morning feeling like he had barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Lisa's face from the corridor, that look of surprise and something else he couldn't identify. He had replayed their conversation 100 times, but it still didn't make sense to him. He got dressed and headed to the bridge for his morning shift. The crew was already at their stations, going through the routine checks that started every day. Jake tried to act normal, but his eyes kept searching for Lisa. She wasn't there. "Where's Rodriguez?" Jake asked Danny Walsh, who was reviewing the night's engineering reports. "She switched to the late shift," Danny said, not looking up from his tablet. "Said she had some personal things to take care of." Jake's stomach dropped. In 3 years of commanding this ship, Lisa had never switched shifts without talking to him first. They always coordinated their schedules, so they could work together. The fact that she was avoiding him made everything worse. "Captain, Amy." Chung called from her communication station. "We're getting a priority message from Federation Command." Jake walked over to her station, grateful for the distraction. "What do they want?" Amy frowned at her screen. "It's strange, sir. They're asking for details about yesterday's rescue mission. Specifically, they want to know about the Zentari ceremony." "The ceremony?" Jake felt confused. Why would they care about that? Before Amy could answer, her console started beeping rapidly. More messages were coming in. Then Danny's station lit up with incoming signals. Within minutes, every communication channel on the ship was receiving messages. "What's happening?" Jake demanded. Amy's eyes went wide as she read the messages. "Sir, it looks like news of the ceremony has spread through the Federation networks. The Zentari are telling everyone that 2 humans performed a soul-matching ritual." Jake felt his heart sink. "And?" "Well, sir, different species are interpreting it differently. The Zentari think you and Lisa are officially engaged according to their customs. The Vulcarians are fascinated by what they call human emotional bonding patterns. The Andromedans want to study your relationship as an example of cross-species ceremony adaptation." Danny looked up from his station with a grin. "Captain, you're famous. Half the galaxy is talking about the human bonding ceremony." Jake wanted to crawl under his command chair. This was exactly the kind of attention he had hoped to avoid. Humans were still new to the Federation, and every action they took was being watched and analyzed by dozens of alien species. "Get me Captain Zefka," Jake ordered. Amy worked at her console for a few minutes before shaking her head. "I'm sorry, sir. The peaceful current has already left the system. But I'm getting reports that Captain Zefka has been giving interviews to Federation News Services. He's describing the ceremony as a perfect example of human warrior bonding." Jake rubbed his temples. This was getting worse by the hour. The turbolift doors opened, and Lisa walked onto the bridge. Jake's heart jumped when he saw her, but she didn't look at him. She walked straight to her station and began checking her equipment. "Rodriguez," Jake said, trying to keep his voice neutral. "I need to speak with you. In my ready room." Lisa finally looked at him, and Jake saw something in her eyes that made his chest tighten. She looked hurt, but also determined. "Yes, sir," she said formally. They walked to Jake's small office behind the bridge. As soon as the door closed, Lisa crossed her arms and stared at him. "So," she said, "are you going to tell me that yesterday was all a big mistake?" Jake was surprised by the directness of her question. "Lisa, because if you are, just say it now. Don't drag this out." Her voice was steady, but Jake could hear the tension underneath. "I don't know what yesterday was," Jake said honestly. "I keep thinking about it, and I can't figure out what happened." Lisa's expression softened slightly. "What do you mean?" Jake sat down in his chair and gestured for Lisa to take the seat across from him. "When you asked me that question about proposing, I answered without thinking. It just felt natural to say yes. But now I'm wondering if you were asking something serious, and I was too stupid to realize it." Lisa was quiet for a long moment. She looked down at her hands, which were folded in her lap. "Jake," she said finally, "we've been friends for 10 years. We've worked together, fought together, saved each other's lives. You know me better than anyone. I thought I did, Jake said. But now I'm not sure. Lisa looked up at him. What if I told you that I've been thinking about you differently for a while now? What if I said that when we work together, when we fight together, I feel something more than just friendship? Jake's heart started beating faster. Are you saying that? I'm saying that when I asked you that question yesterday, part of me hoped you would give me the answer you gave me. But the other part of me was terrified that you would. Jake leaned forward. Why terrified? Because if you meant it, everything changes. If you didn't mean it, I've just ruined the best friendship I've ever had. Before Jake could respond, his communicator beeped. Amy's voice came through the speaker. Captain, we're receiving new orders from Federation Command. Priority 1. Jake looked at Lisa apologetically. We'll have to continue this later. They returned to the bridge, where Amy was already displaying the new orders on the main screen. Jake read them quickly and felt his stomach drop again. We're being reassigned, he told the crew. We're to escort a diplomatic convoy to the Andorian Council Chambers. The convoy includes representatives from 12 different species. Danny whistled. That's a big mission, Captain. Any idea why we got chosen? Jake looked at Lisa, who was reading the orders with a grim expression. I think it has something to do with our new reputation. Command wants us to represent humanity. At a major diplomatic event, Amy looked up from her station. Sir, there's more. The convoy includes the human delegation that will be petitioning for full Federation membership. This isn't just a transport mission. If something goes wrong, it could affect humanity's entire future in the galaxy. Jake felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. This was exactly what he had feared. Because of one moment of honesty, he and Lisa had become symbols of something they didn't understand. When do we leave? Lisa asked. Tomorrow. Morning, Jake replied. We'll rendezvous with the convoy at the Proxima station. As the crew began preparing for the mission, Jake found himself watching Lisa work. She was focused and professional, but there was something different about the way she moved, the way she held herself. The easy comfort they had always shared was gone, replaced by a tension that made Jake's chest ache. During the evening shift change, Jake approached Lisa again. We need to finish our conversation. Lisa shook her head. Not now, Jake. We have a mission to focus on. Whatever this is between us, it has to wait. But Lisa, no. Her voice was firm. You said it yourself. We're representing humanity now. We can't afford to be distracted by personal issues. Jake watched her walk away, and he realized that she was right. They had a job to do, and the stakes were higher than they had ever been. But he also knew that the tension between them wasn't going to disappear just because they ignored it. That night, Jake lay in his bed staring at the ceiling. In less than 24 hours, they will be escorting some of the most important people in the galaxy. Everyone would be watching them, analyzing their every move, looking for signs of the famous human bonding phenomenon. And through it all, he would have to work alongside Lisa, pretending that nothing had changed between them, while his heart raced every time she looked at him. Jake closed his eyes and tried to sleep, but all he could think about was Lisa's question. If I actually proposed to you, would you say yes? He had said yes, and now he was beginning to understand what that answer might cost them both. Captain Jake Morrison stared at the flashing red light on his command console. The distress signal was weak, but it was definitely there. He had been commanding the human exploration vessel Stellar Dawn for 3 years now, and he had learned to trust his instincts about these things. Lisa, what do you make of this signal? He called to his tactical officer. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Rodriguez looked up from her station. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, and her brown eyes were focused on the data streaming. Across her screen, Jake had known Lisa for over 10 years, ever since they graduated from the academy together. She was the best tactical officer he had ever worked with, and more importantly, she was his closest friend. It's coming from the Vega system, Lisa said. her fingers dancing across her controls. "Looks like a merchant vessel." "The signal is in Zentari language," Jake nodded. The Zentari were one of the more peaceful species in the Galactic Trade Federation. They were tall, blue-skinned beings who valued honor above all else. If a Zentari ship was in trouble, it was probably not because they had started a fight. "Set course for the signal," Jake ordered. "Maximum speed." The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency. Chief Engineer Danny Walsh confirmed that the engines were ready. Communications Officer Amy Chun tried to establish contact with the distressed vessel. The Stellar Dawn was one of the first human ships to join the Federation, and Jake felt the weight of representing his entire species every time they encountered other aliens. 20 minutes later, they arrived at the source of the signal. What they found made Jake's stomach tighten. A large Zentari merchant ship was being attacked by 3 smaller vessels. The attackers were firing energy weapons at the merchant ship's hull, clearly trying to disable it rather than destroy it. "Pirates," Lisa said grimly. "They want the cargo." Jake studied the tactical display. The pirate ships were fast but lightly armed. The merchant vessel was bigger, but seemed to have minimal weapons. It was a classic pirate scenario. Attack someone who can't fight back effectively. "Can we take all 3 ships?" Jake asked. Lisa's eyes lit up with the same spark Jake had seen countless times during their years together. When there was a fight to be won, Lisa became completely focused. She was like a predator studying her prey. "Absolutely," she said with confidence. "But we need to move fast." The merchant ship's shields were failing. Jake felt that familiar surge of adrenaline that came before battle. This was what he and Lisa did best. They fought as a team, anticipating each other's moves, covering each other's weaknesses. They had never lost a fight when they worked together. "All hands, battle stations," Jake announced over the ship's communication system. "We have pirates attacking a civilian vessel. We're going in." The next few minutes were a blur of coordinated action. Jake maneuvered the Stellar Dawn into attack position while Lisa targeted the enemy ships. They moved like dancers who had performed the same routine 1,000 times. Jake would turn the ship to give Lisa a clear shot, and she would fire at exactly the right moment. When the pirates returned fire, Jake would dodge while Lisa calculated their next move. The first pirate ship exploded in a burst of orange flame. The second one tried to flee, but Lisa's precise targeting disabled its engines. The third pirate ship surrendered when it realized it was outmatched. "Excellent work," came a voice over the communication system. It was the captain of the Zentari merchant vessel. "You have saved my ship and my crew. I am Captain Zefka of the trading vessel Peaceful Current." Jake smiled. "Captain Morrison of the human ship Stellar Dawn. We're glad we could help." "You must come aboard," Captain Zefka said. "Zentari honor demands that we properly thank our saviors." An hour later, Jake and Lisa found themselves in the cargo bay of the Zentari ship. The entire crew was gathered around them in a circle. Captain Zefka, who was nearly 7 feet tall with bright blue skin and silver eyes, stood in the center holding an ornate crystal. "Among my people," Captain Zefka said in his deep, resonant voice, "there is a ceremony for warriors who fight as one mind. You two move together like the twin moons of our homeworld. Your souls are clearly matched." Jake glanced at Lisa, who was trying not to smile. Zentari ceremonies were always elaborate and took forever, but it would be rude to refuse. "Captain." Zefka raised the crystal above his head. "By the ancient laws of our people, I declare Jake Morrison and Lisa Rodriguez to be soul matched. May your bond bring strength to both your peoples." The Zentari crew began a low humming chant. Jake felt slightly embarrassed. He and Lisa were just good friends and colleagues who worked well together. But if this ceremony made the Zentari happy, he could endure it. When they returned to the Stellar Dawn, the crew was waiting for them in the main corridor. Someone had obviously told them about the ceremony because they were all grinning. "So, when's the wedding?" called out Chief Engineer Danny Walsh. "Very funny," Lisa said. but she was smiling too. I heard Zentari soul matching is legally binding. In 12-star systems, added communications officer Amy Chun. The crew laughed, and Jake felt the familiar warmth of being surrounded by people who cared about him. The Stellar Dawn was more than just a ship. It was home. As the crowd dispersed, Jake and Lisa walked toward the bridge together. They had duty shifts to finish and reports to file. It was just another day in space, or so Jake thought. You know, Lisa said casually, if I actually proposed to you, would you say yes? Jake didn't think about his answer. It just came out naturally, the way words do when you're talking to your best friend. If she proposed, I'd say yes, he said with a shrug. Lisa stopped walking. She turned to look at him with an expression Jake had never seen before. Her brown eyes were wide, and her mouth was slightly open. For a moment, she looked almost shocked. What? Jake asked, confused by her reaction. Lisa stared at him for several more seconds. Her face went through a series of emotions: surprise, confusion, something that might have been hope, and then a kind of panic. I need to check something on the bridge, she said quickly, and then she was gone, walking fast toward the elevator. Jake stood alone in the corridor, wondering what had just happened. It had been a simple joke, hadn't it? They had been friends for 10 years. They joked about everything. So why did Lisa look like he had just said something earth-shattering? He replayed the conversation in his mind. Lisa had asked if he would say yes as she proposed. He had said yes. What was wrong with that answer? Slowly, an uncomfortable thought began to form in Jake's mind. What if Lisa hadn't been joking? What if she had been asking a serious question, and he had answered it seriously without realizing it? Jake walked to his quarters, his mind spinning. He thought about all the times over the years when he had caught Lisa looking at him strangely. He thought about how she never seemed to date anyone, even though she was smart and beautiful and funny. He thought about how perfectly they worked together, how they seemed to read each other's thoughts. Had he been blind to something that was right in front of him? And if so, what did his answer mean? He had said yes without thinking about it. Did that mean something? Jake sat down on his bed and put his head in his hands. One simple joke had somehow changed everything, and he wasn't sure he understood what it had changed into. All he knew was that tomorrow he would have to face Lisa again, and nothing would ever be quite the same between them.